Welcome back to Community Engagement Essentials. This is Module 3, and in this module, we are going to be discussing the strategies for building community relationships. These are the learning objectives. Why building trust and credibility? When you are planning for your community engagement initiative or efforts, it is important to look at how to build relationship within the community and among your stakeholders. Remember, we said that stakeholders are in different categories: the primary stakeholders, the secondary stakeholders, and the key stakeholders. All these form the people you are going to be relating with during and even after your community engagement initiative. And it is important to build trust and credibility with them. So what is trust and credibility? These are foundational elements that establish a strong relationship between stakeholders, which include your community members, organizations that you are working with, and other institutions that are important in your community engagement initiative. So, trust is that confidence, reliance, and faith that stakeholders have in each other's intentions, actions, and commitments. While credibility is that perception of trustworthiness, expertise, and reliability that stakeholders attribute to individuals, organizations, or initiatives that are involved in community engagement. So let's take, for instance, you are working with a community on a certain initiative. So these community members, they need to see you as a trustworthy person or group, as the case may be. They need to see that you are an expert, and they need to see you as reliable. When they see all these things, they will be able to have that, let's say, that readiness to work with you. They will be able to have that trust to participate. They will be able to rely on whatever that you are bringing to their community. They will be able to get involved in what you are doing once they see you as trustworthy, as an expert, as reliable. So these are the importance of trust and credibility in community engagement. Trust and credibility enhances open communication. It leads to meaningful participation. It enhances collaboration. It also brings about effective decision making. It enables long-term engagement. It leads to conflict resolution and increases impact. These are trust and credibility building behaviors in community engagement. So you need to be transparent. When you want people to trust you, when you want other stakeholders to have that perception of trustworthiness, you need to be transparent in your doing. You need to be honest. You need to listen actively. You need to respect others. You need to be inclusive in whatever that you are doing. You need to have empathy. You need to show empathy. You need to be accountable. When you are accountable, then your stakeholders will trust you and they will see you as someone that is credible. You need to also collaborate. You also need to be open to feedback. So if you are embarking on a community engagement initiative, or you're already implementing a community engagement initiative with your team members, you need to open to feedback. It is from this feedback you will learn. And once you learn, you'll be able to make whatever you are doing in that community better. And it is not just about receiving feedback. You need to also take actions on those feedback and follow through. When they see that you are following through, they will be able to trust you, and they will be able to make themselves available in whatever you are doing. So we have talked about effective communication in trust and credibility building behaviors. It is listed amongst those behaviors that was mentioned earlier on. So let's look at the role of effective communication in community engagement. Listed here are the roles of effective communication in community engagement. We have information sharing. It helps to share information. When you communicate effectively, it leads to information sharing and other roles that are listed here. So active listening and empathy, they are techniques of effective communication. So they can serve as skills for community engagement practitioners and also as techniques to communicate effectively, because it enables meaningful interactions, it builds trust and deepen understanding of community perspectives and also other stakeholders that you are working with in your community engagement initiative. So how do you listen actively? How do you listen actively? You have to give your full attention. You have to show nonverbal engagement. You have to ask open-ended questions. You have to stay neutral. You have to avoid interruptions. It is important. Allow people to finish talking before you interrupt or before you start your own contribution. And these are empathy. These are ways you can practice empathy. You need to put yourself in people's shoes. You need to listen without judgment. You need to practice cultural sensitivity. You need to follow up. You need to reflect and learn from people. So when you learn from your stakeholders, you learn from community members, you will be able to use these lessons to make your community engagement initiative better. Listed here are the communication channels that can be used in community engagement. These are the different communication channels. We have the physical ones, which are the focus group discussions, the community events, the peer networks, community forums, and we have the online, which are used by it can be used through technology. So it can be achieved through technology. We have the social media, we have the email communications, we have the video conferencing, and so on. So these are the barriers to effective communication. These are barriers to effective communication. We have language and cultural differences. We have misunderstanding and assumptions. We have lack of trust. So it is important to look at ways to overcome these barriers. For example, language and cultural differences. You have to understand that diversity exists, and once you understand that diversity exists, you'll be able to think of ways to overcome the barriers. For example, you can decide to employ interpreters that will interpret different language. You can also ensure that people understand diversity, the people that you work with, your team members. So misunderstandings and assumptions, you need to overcome that by really, really listening to people, understanding them, and avoid assumptions. For lack of trust, you need to exhibit trust building behaviors. So we have talked about different trust building behaviors earlier on. So these are the barriers. Just have to start thinking about these different strategies that can be employed to overcome these barriers. So, for example, the lack of feedback loops. You need to establish feedback channel. So you need to be open to feedbacks and take actions on these feedbacks. So utilizing technology for engagement, you need to, so we are going through the benefits of technology in engagement. So these are the benefits: increased reach, convenience, accessibility, cost efficiency, and so on. So let's talk about collaborative partnerships and alliances. It is quite important to work on collaborative partnerships and alliances when you are building community relationships, because you need to work with people. When you want to build community relationship, you need to work with people, you need to work with organizations, you need to work with institutions. So you need to understand that it is quite important to collaborate if you want to make more impact. So working together enhances impact, and before you can work together with others, you need to identify who are your potential partners and allies. So you need to seek like-minded organizations or individuals, and by so doing, it will enlarge your reach. It will also increase your impact. It will also increase your resources because you are working with other like-minded organizations or individuals. So it will make things easier for you. So maintaining positive partnerships, you need to nurture relationship and also look for ways to sustain collaboration. You can do that by building trust and credibility among your stakeholders. Your stakeholders could also serve as your partners. I mean, your partners can be your stakeholders also. Let's look at the summary of this module. We have talked about building trust and credibility. We mentioned trust and credibility behaviors in community engagement, which are honesty, transparency, active listening, and so on. We talked about effective communication techniques. We mentioned active listening and empathy. We also talked about the importance of using social media, the benefit of using social media for engagement. Cost effective, it is cost effective, it also have a wider reach, and so on. So we also talked about the value of collaborative partnerships and alliances. So when you work with other people, it enhances impact and also brings about creating of more value and impact in your community engagement initiatives. And this brings us to the end of Module 3. Let's look at what we have in Module 4. So in Module 4, we are going to be talking about designing and planning community engagement activities. And listed here are what we are going to be discussing in Module 4.